You are listening to the Cup of Mets podcast, your one-stop shop for all things New York Mets baseball. Remember to give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, and X. We are at Cup of Mets. Subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, download the SeatGeek app and use code Cup of Mets at first purchase to get $20 off. Now, your hosts, Ian Bosniak and Matthew DeSantis. Matty, happy 4th of July, brother. 250.
You as well, man. Yeah, America's turning 250 years old. I love it. Red, white, and brew.
Red, white, and brew. Yeah, I'm trying to stay positive on that, but I think, empires or countries, they typically last around 250, 300 years. So, the next 50 some odd years will be interesting. I'm trying to stay positive, though. Trying to stay positive.
That's for sure, man. That's for sure. But hopefully everybody's staying cool out there during this heat wave.
Yeah, what's the temperature right now up there?
Over 100, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of used to it down here in Florida. Even though I haven't been here for long, I know what to expect. But I feel like whenever it's over 100 in New York, it's like, all right, everyone stop what they're doing, find a pool, find a beach.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's why right after we hop off here and edit this episode up, publish it, I gotta head to some sort of body of water because
100%.
I think my AC is about to blow out down here and my bill's about to be through the roof. Yeah, dude. But anyway, obviously, we're in a different season right now when it comes to Mets baseball. This episode's definitely gonna be outlined a little bit different, and we're gonna go about it differently than most. We're not going to get into, the Mets series against the Phillies and the Mets series against the Blue Jays because, quite frankly, the Mets are 15 games below 500, and they are all but sellers. And we know this. It has not been, publicized that they are sellers, even though Stearns and Cohen have spoken publicly about the state of the team. But I think just coming off, of Mendoza being fired and us touching upon that last time, there are a couple of revelations. We published that episode right before David Stearns spoke, so we'll touch upon that a little bit more. And also Steve Cohen finally broke his silence, as I mentioned, hopped on the podcast with Joel Sherman and John Heyman. There were a couple interesting tidbits that we drew from that. But before we dive into all that, some quick notes. July 3rd. Jorge Polanco and Luis Robert Jr. in the lineup for the Syracuse Mets. On rehab assignments, I think that they're going to obviously go about both in a careful manner, one being a back, the other one being the Achilles, right? Polanco's been through rehab assignments before thus far, but has had setbacks, whereas Robert hasn't really tangoed there. But I feel like Robert's going to be back quicker. The interesting thing, though, that I'm trying to wrap my head around is where do they both fit in when they return?
Hopefully nowhere. I mean, Robert better not take away fucking at-bats from Ewing, not and bench, which is obviously going to happen. But I don't know, man. Those two are freaking made out of glass, so I feel like you never know what's going to happen with them.
Yeah. I think that when you're looking, I'm not going to say who's going to be sent down and this and that. Obviously, AJ Ewing has earned his jersey and his spot in the lineup. So I don't necessarily think that Robert's going to take at bats away from Ewing. I think that there's a few ways that they can go about Luis Robert that is interesting. One, I think that they could conceivably DH Juan Soto at certain points and, have Robert out in left field, or they can move Ewing to left field just for the time being, right? And just to ramp up Robert being in center field, make it known to other teams, and we'll touch upon this later on in the episode, make it known to other teams, hey, this guy's healthy, he can play center field, and get him some ABs. And then on other days, he can also DH and Soto can play left. When it comes to Jorge Polanco, I think that situation's interesting. Jared Young has definitely slowed down. I still want Jared Young in the lineup because he doesn't make a fool of himself, whether it be in the field He puts up some good ABs. He hits home runs. Um, and he's not just he's not a schmuck like the rest of the team. You know what I mean? Like I really like Jared Young when all is said and done. I don't care if his average for the season ends up being 200. I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna say Jared Young was a positive from 2026.
Yeah.
So Polanco, I think that especially with Semien being out, maybe he sees some time at second base. That's another thing that I'm wondering when it comes to Robert, even like maybe Ewing can play some second base and Robert can play center field. There are so many different ways that Andy Green can go about it. But then Polanco obviously could DH because Beatty and Vientos both suck. So, he can also DH. So there's a bunch of different ways that they can go about it. But definitely worth noting, right? The Mets will have a conceivably, healthier lineup, whatever that may look like.
Yeah.
And then the second part, which is very promising for the Mets and something that we'll also touch upon later on in the episode, Clay Holmes returning quicker than expected. He is set to begin a rehab assignment most likely after the All-Star break. He'll probably be on track to return right before the trade deadline. Um, I mean, listen, you have Clay Holmes come back. That conceivably does away with a four-man rotation. I love that. It's really going to be interesting to see, though, how the Mets go about things with Clay Holmes moving forward, considering he's definitely one of the top tier pitchers on the trade market.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these teams are going to probably want to see him get a couple starts under his belt before they trade like assets for him. But I mean, he's on an expiring deal, right?
Yeah, he's got a player option for next year, but he'll opt out.
Yeah, isn't
You
it?
know,
It's for $12 million, so I'm assuming he will opt out.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the way I'm looking at it is the Mets need to replenish a farm system that's probably like bottom tier of the league now, somewhere
yeah,
in the 20s. But I mean, we just had the graduation of Benj and Ewing, so that and
hey,
traded Williams and Sproat, so there is going to be a fall off. Um, but they really need to replenish the prospect pool. So
yeah,
I think I saw something. I read Will Salmon's latest article, and he said the Mets aren't going to be targeting a specific position. They're not going to be targeting pitchers. They're not going to be targeting specific position players. They're going to be targeting the best group, pretty much the best prospects that they can get from these teams,
yeah.
which
Whether
is
Yeah, I
smart.
read that. I read that. Yeah, whether they're close to the major leagues or not. Yeah,
Yeah. Any
I,
level, like they need, because at this point they need to just get as much talent as possible that can open up a winter trade. But Steve also said the payroll next year is, he's like, we got to wait and see who opts in, opts out. But the payroll next year is already at over 300 mil.
yeah, yeah. And then I think that comes into play with like trading a guy like Clay Holmes or potentially trading a guy like Luis Robert Jr. or seeing if there's somehow a market for Bo Bichette. We'll talk about that. And there's definitely some interesting ways that they could go about it. And obviously, Steve spoke about a bunch of different things. But yeah, Clay Holmes through 9 starts this year, 2.39 ERA, and the FIP not much higher than that. So he really put on a clinic before he got hurt, and I definitely think that there's going to be a market. I know I've mentioned this in the past, but when you're looking at Clay Holmes, you got to think like the Shane Bieber trade from last year.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we'll get into that later on in the episode. I did want to get your take on David Stearns' comments. He spoke again right after we recorded episode 12 last week about the firing of Mendoza. I will say, bravo to the reporters and the media. They finally grilled him. I loved what I saw.
Yeah.
They basically, and listen, I'll give Stearns this. Stearns took the blame. He admitted failure, but again, he spoke about the processes and stuff like that. And it's like, it always brings me back to that Pete Alonso quote, right? And you and I were both, hey, do we need Pete Alonso for 2026? Yeah, but like in 5 years, the contract may not look good, right? But it always brings me back to his quote where it was like, when they're evaluating me for the Hall of Fame years from now, you'll still be fiddling with effing formulas, right? And I think that that's where David Stearns really messed things up this winter. It was like, let's completely blow up the roster while also blowing up the coaching staff,
Mhm.
and let's see what happens. And there was so much change that was to be made that it just took forever for things to mesh, and they're still not meshing.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a big evaluation process that is going on, but it really sounded like, because Stearns did not want to get into it, he didn't want to discuss how that conversation took place that morning. But it really did sound like Steve Cohen forced David Stearns' hand when it came to the firing of Carlos Mendoza.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that was coming. There was no way to keep him in there for the freaking rest of the year. And if they did, you just have to laugh because it's just like when you're not producing and you're producing shit results, somebody needs to be held accountable. And you said, yeah, I'm very, very proud of those reporters. That was like the first time I've ever seen them do that. Um, and it needed to be done. But I think, a lot of people, including us, want David Stearns fired. He's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah,
He's staying at this point. I think Steve knows the front office has just been. I think they'll make big front office changes. Hopefully, they add a GM to fucking, give him more input and somebody that he can butt heads with in terms of his opinions.
yeah,
But I feel like there'll be a major shakeup in the front office, and then they're gonna end up keeping him. And I bet you he's not going to get a contract extension. But Steve was probably like, "You're not going to get one if these are the results that you're going to keep producing."
yeah, yeah. And I also think that it goes into, he is 2.5 years into a 5-year contract. And next year, if there is a season, right, it'll be year 3, right? And obviously, Steve Cohen promised the fan base, promised that he would bring a winning team, and he owned up to that the other day. And things have not gone the way that he thought that they would. And David Stearns obviously said that himself, but 3 years in, but he also said that he's going to take it year by year, day by day. And I think that as this situation continues to evolve and how he goes about things, I think it'll be really telling as to how much leash, David Stearns gets, because I think it comes back to the word that you said before, right? Accountability. And I think that, you know, obviously the Mets got a good return when it came to David Peterson, when it came, getting Cole Mathis, but that was step one of someone being held accountable, right? And there were so many different players that could be held accountable, right? Whether it be Kodai Senga, whether it be some of the bats, whether it be other arms. But David Peterson was like, it was the first guy to get dealt that. It was like, okay, there's going to be some sort of shift, right? And then obviously Mendoza being fired. But I said it to you, I think we were texting, right? That 6-error game,
Yeah.
and then following it up with 2 errors the next night, there was no way. There was no way that he was going to survive that. But something else that I also thought was interesting in that post game, I think you said it in the episode when the Mets said that Andy Green was going to be the interim manager. You know, both Stearns mentioned it, and then also Andy Green mentioned it in his pregame before his first game, saying that they felt like he was the best fit because he was the only one that really had managerial experience and experience talking with reporters.
Yeah.
And that's what I find so interesting. It's like you collapsed last season, you replaced the coaching staff, you do away with a guy like John Gibbons, who had experience as the bench coach, and you bring in a guy like Kai Correa, who can't even see over the fucking dugout rail. And it's like, listen, I like the way that Andy Green spoke. I like the way that he goes about things.
Me too.
You can see that he's very articulate as well in the way that he talks. That's probably why David Stearns likes him.
Yeah.
He's a smart dude. But I just find it fascinating that you would blow it up knowing that your manager was on a hot seat already without having a contingency plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it last episode. Stearns probably fucking begged him to do it,
Yeah, yeah. And
and
it
then
sounded like he did.
I'm sure that they were probably like, yeah, after you're gonna go back into the front office, like Hopefully it doesn't end with like Andy Green like being shown the door in the organization.
Yeah, I don't think it will. And you even heard Andy Green. I agree. I think that it was a conversation. I think that's one of the reasons why it took so long was because
Mm-hmm.
they were like, listen, we don't have a solution here, A. And then B, it's also like Andy Green was so transparent. And David Stearns said this is only an interim role. Right after the season ends, we will go into a managerial search. And Andy Green even admitted, he said, the reason why I, have obviously, gone through interview processes to become a manager, but the reason why I decided that I wanted to be in the front office was not only because I like the development aspect of things, but, I want to take my high school children to go see a Broadway player, to go do this or to go do that and not be away every single weekend and this and that. So it sounded like this was a long evolving conversation that had to be had, a decision that had to be made. And Andy Green was the only one that could follow suit. And that's why I just say to myself, I'm like, yo, if you knew that there was a probability that Carlos Mendoza could get fired, how could you not have somebody with experience right next to him on the bench?
Yeah, I know. That Kai Correa's hiring is fucking stupid. Another analytic hire.
Yeah, the dude's an infield coach and the infield blows.
Yeah, literally. Should have fired his ass too.
It's it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. The only coach that I do like is Justin Willard. I do like him from a pitching side. I think that he'll need another year to really grasp onto things. I hope whoever comes in next will retain Justin Willard because he's kind of like a Jeremy Hefner in a sense that he had a great track record before he joined the Mets organization with the Red Sox and a couple other teams. He was pretty widely coveted by other organizations. So, but yeah, we'll see. There's a long way till that. But before we get into Steve Cohen's, comments, I do want to mention this before I actually go into what I was gonna say. You know, Stearns also said he won't commit to the sell mode, and we'll obviously discuss that because they're selling. But also, the reporters asked David Stearns if he has considered stepping down. Bravo.
Yeah, that was
Bravo.
that was great.
Like, and then, he smirks
He
and
goes,
he's like,
didn't he go? No, I have no plans of that.
yeah, he said something along the lines of like, no, I think that there's a lot of things that need to be evaluated. And I forget the exact quote. I don't have it up in front of me, nor do I care to even look at his face to find the article and to see the
Yeah.
quote. But you know what? It's like, I unfortunately, the manager normally is the fall guy, right?
Mhm.
But Mendoza was set up to fail. Whether we like his managerial style or not, he was set up to fail. And that's kind of like the bottom line. And I think that David Stearns really needs to acclimate to understanding that he is not in a small market, that he needs to build up the farm system so that we always have resources coming in. But again, he has to be aggressive in going after players that he wants and not wait back just for them to say, oh, yeah, I'll settle for a 2 or 3 year deal because the best players are not going to do that in this game. Right. And
Yeah.
it always goes back to that Andrew Friedman quote, man. You're too rational about every free agent. You're going to finish third for every free agent. And I think that David Stearns is realizing that. Maybe, I don't know, or maybe his pride is getting in the way. That's probably what it is. But yeah, before we get into the Steve Cohen comments, some managerial candidates have emerged as potential, 2027 and beyond, managers. Andy Green obviously is going to be an interim. I think there still is like a slight chance that they remove that interim tag and, he interviews and is the manager. That remains to be seen. But from an outside standpoint, some have emerged. I know I brought it up last time because I saw something while we were recording that Albert Pujols, he was on MLB Network. He confirmed that he has interest, spoke about the fan base and spoke about, how he went through interview processes last year and, things didn't evolve like he wanted to, but the Mets really intrigue him because they have an owner that wants to win and is willing to spend and is willing to, go all out. And, the fan base is hungry for a championship. Albert Pujols definitely is interesting. David Ross is another one.
Yeah.
former Cubs manager. I felt like he got a raw end of the deal in Chicago because I think that he would have stayed had Craig Counsell not become available. But he has said that, he hopes that the Mets call him.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. And then Alex Cora. Alex Cora, he didn't say hey, yo, I'm interested, but he did say it's literally a very solid organization, really, really good owner. Um, where do you see that headed? I know it's early, but
I think it's a little early right now, but you can't get a first time manager. And I feel like we're saying this again and what was it, 3 years ago we had Buck. Um I wouldn't mind David Ross.
yeah, yeah,
I wouldn't mind him. I think that they'll cast a very wide net. I think they'll interview probably like 20 plus candidates, ranging from first time managers to, veteran managers. I think they'll interview like a Mike Schild.
yeah.
Um,
I definitely think Joe Girardi's going to get a call.
he probably will.
Yeah, and then we've also heard names like David Bell, former Reds manager, Rocco Baldelli. Rocco Baldelli's a solid name.
Yeah,
Um,
I do. I
I
like Cora.
Yeah, Alex Cora. I think Alex Cora, he would be stepping into a very similar situation that he was in Boston with Craig Breslow, just an overbearing president of baseball ops breathing down your neck, and I think that that's something that definitely is something that he's going to consider.
Mhm.
Um, I will say though, if I was a betting man, which I am, can't say that I'm great at betting, but if I was a betting man, and I am, I would bet my marbles that it's Carlos Beltran. I still I still think, we get through him going to Cooperstown, we get through retiring the number. He's a special assistant to Stearns already. He knows all the players. He knows the city. And I think that I agree with you. I want somebody with experience. And I've said this before. When you have young kids and then when you have Hall of Fame caliber players like a Soto, like a Lindor, you need somebody that is going to be able to put those guys in their place. If they
Mhm.
have an issue, call them into the office and have them squash it right then and there, guide young kids in the right direction. But I think if there's an outlier when it comes to a first time manager, I think that it's
Mhm.
Carlos. I really do think it's Carlos Beltran.
Yeah. No, I mean there's always that possibility, and I wouldn't be mad at it because I love Carlos, I've always wanted him to get his shot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I could see a scenario where that happens, and would I be mad? Absolutely not. But do I think that they really do need a veteran voice in there that literally like a remember Terry Collins's press conferences and say, I don't care how these guys got here, they're big league ball players.
Yep.
We play like big league ball players, or we will find players that will.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So literally, like we never heard any fire out of Mendoza. We heard the
No.
same crap at every single press conference.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I Mendoza wasn't, and I he got us to the NLCS. I mean, but he was not. He like reminds me of Tom Thibodeau. He would have never have gotten the Mets over that hump.
Yeah. Yeah.
They need to find somebody that will, because, like you said, there's young players, there's Hall of Fame caliber players, and we need somebody that could literally put an ego away,
Yeah. Yeah.
like a locker room cancer or something,
Yep.
and get these guys to play together because they're not playing together.
Yeah.
The like, and I think everything's gonna really change soon. I give it I give it 2 more weeks of this shit. We're gonna just
Yeah.
continue losing. Then I think we'll see another trade.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even think we're gonna get much for Peralta.
I know. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. Two other names that I do want to mention though that I just thought of. Bob Melvin,
hmm
um, and Rob Thompson. I think that those
I think Thompson will definitely get an interview.
New York experience, NL East experience. He's a vet. He kind of
Mhm.
reminds me of like a Pat Murphy. But I agree with you. It's like we had been talking for years through the good and the bad about Mendoza and how he went and said the same shit. It really reminded me of Willie Randolph. Willie
Yeah,
Randolph would say the same stuff, and then all of a sudden you brought in Jerry Manuel, and yeah, Manuel turned it around in year one, but then crapped the bed years 2 and 3. But Jerry Manuel said it how it was, right?
yeah.
And that's something that you respect out of a manager, and definitely something that needs to be pushed forward with whoever comes in next. And then again, as I mentioned, Steve Cohen went on the podcast the other day with John Heyman and Joel Sherman. He said he's not happy, obviously, and he will be more involved. He has his own internal people taking a look at everything that's going on within the organization. I don't know if these are .72 people or
Probably, bro.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
probably getting. They're probably auditing the entire company.
yeah. Because he said he's like, listen, I'm not like a baseball first guy, but I'm a solution oriented person.
He's
I'm
not.
somebody.
You don't get to that kind of status by literally like being an idiot. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah, and
don't.
he
He knows. Trust me. Whoever Steve Cohen's accountant is probably like. You want to know how much money David Stearns has fucking wasted of yours?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and he's probably like, it's not just 5 million, Steve. It's like 200.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I know that sounds like a drop in the bucket for somebody like him, but like you're still losing a guy's money. And
yeah,
how long do you think someone's going to deal with that for? Like, so honestly, that's good. They really, somebody needs to go into that organization and fucking see what's going on because
yeah, and just tear up everything that's going on because he's got to figure out what processes are working and what aren't. And we talk about how analytics are is such a downfall in the way of evaluation and things of that. And we do believe that, but at the same time, when it comes to processes, there's so much more that involves that than just analytics. And he's got to figure out what the hell is going on because, he even said, he's like, I'm worried about not just this season. I'm willing to go through what we did in 2023 by trading Verlander, trading Scherzer, trading Kana, this, that, and the third. But I'm worried about beyond, right? Because then you look at the failures at the minor league level, and that's something that we've spoken about all season long. It's like you look at the minor leagues, the only guys that are having good seasons is a guy like Elian Pena, who's 18 years old, a guy like Mitch Voigt, who they just drafted, who's, in single A. Thankfully, a guy like Jonathan Santucci has really turned it around and he looks great, but they have nothing at the upper levels that is on the cusp, right? Jonah Tong and Jack Wenninger have both taken a step backwards. I think Ryan Clifford's 0 for his last 100. Like, dude's hitting like a buck 90.
yeah, no, it's not looking good. It really isn't looking good. And if Polanco gets fucking hurt again, you might as well just like put him on the IL for 60 days and
Yeah,
bring Clifford up because you got to see what you have in him.
yeah.
Like
And
he's I think what 23, 24 years old. You have to see if this kid maybe will turn it around. I mean, what does he have? 14 home runs, over 40 RBIs, but you said he's batting like 196.
yeah,
Like so at least bring him up, see if you're like looking at something, if you're like, all right, this kid is like a bench piece. Um
yeah,
or if you think, he comes up and he's been in AAA for a while. I
yeah.
think it's second full season in AAA.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah. I think that it's just something that it's such an interesting situation. I think the one thing that I will say that at least gives me comfort in knowing is like, listen, we did graduate Ewing and Benj and McLean, and we traded Williams and Sproat,
yeah.
but there wasn't much change when it comes to the staffing or when it comes to the head honchos of the minor league department
Mhm.
between like 2024 and 2026. So I think that that's the one thing that gives me confidence and says like, all right, maybe there are certain outliers within the system. Maybe this is just a bad year, and I know that that's not an excuse, nor is it conceivable to think that all top 30 prospects can have bad years at once, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that's one thing that I will acknowledge. It's like it's not like Stearns overhauled that department too, and now they're all shitting the bed because that's not necessarily occurring. But it's definitely something to take in account, and that's why the Mets really need to a do well with their first round draft pick at 27. They need to pick a kid, whoever that may be. I think it's same with the trade, right? You need to get the best kid available on the board, regardless of position, regardless of
Mhm.
age. And then also when it comes to the trades, do everything and anything you can to try to bolster this farm system at the upper tiers. And whether it's the upper tiers or the lower tiers, something that gives you flexibility to call kids up, but then also make the trades that need to be made. Um, but Cohen also said that, and this was very interesting because we haven't heard owners talk about this much publicly, but
Yeah.
he's also worried about 2027 because like of the CBA. And I know like last night I watched Jeff Passan on Talking Baseball, and he said, I know that fans are worried because the owners and the Players Association have gone back and forth. This is what happens, in any negotiation, not just sports, right? You start high, you start lowering expectations, and something comes in the middle, right? But obviously, there's been a lot of talk. December 1st, there's going to be a lockout, and he even said, Cohen said, and candidly speaking, right? Like, if there's a salary cap, whatever that salary cap may look like, he's going to have to trade some players, right? And
Yeah.
when you look at a guy like Juan Soto who's making 60 million bucks, that takes up however much of the salary cap. If Bo Bichette opts in, that's 100 million guaranteed to two players, and then Lindor 34 million, right? So there's so much to consider. So you got to worry about who's going to opt in, who's going to opt out. And again, the jury's out on the CBA, and this will be a discussion for another episode. But what I'm hoping is that they create a salary floor,
That's
and
needed more, but I feel like if they're gonna create the floor, they're probably gonna create the fucking ceiling too.
but then you know what I think that it should be? It's like I think one thing that the owners have wanted, and I agree with this, whether the players agree with this or not, like the deferred compensation has allowed, and deferring contracts has always been a thing. It's not just Bobby Bonilla, so people need to
Yeah.
get there out of their heads. But like we're still celebrating Bobby Bonilla Day. Meanwhile, Shohei Ohtani is going to be paid money through 2086. All right. Like, and like Manny Ramirez just got his last installment from the Red Sox. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's something that's been going on for a while, but I think, contract deferrals have to go away. But I even think that if you have a salary floor and if you have a salary cap of $500 million or $450 million, like there's no reason why the players shouldn't agree to that, right? Because there's only a team or two that's willing to even go near there, right? So I don't know, but it definitely was interesting listening to Cohen talk about that because he's like, there's a lot of things that we got to really look into when it comes to this deadline and looking ahead. Um, and then something else that I liked that he said, they asked him about, you know, listening to the fans chant Pete Alonso's name the other night and talking about how players have come in and haven't performed and if they need to start evaluating how players can handle New York or not. Dude, I've been saying this for a while, and we all know that not every player can handle New York, but there has to be some psychological test that can be run to determine whether or not a player can play in this market. Because how many times are we going to go through this where a player just can't perform in this market
Yeah.
and we're just left paying him, and it's just like it's like a place where players go to die.
I know, and they had big plans for this season with bringing in Bichette, trading for Peralta.
Yeah,
Nothing's worked, man.
nothing's worked.
None of anything of what they've done has worked, and I'll die on this hill. Their plan should have been youth last year.
Yeah,
That should have been the plan going into the offseason. They should have been like, we want Benj to win the job. We want Ewing up. I mean, if the Mets didn't start like that, Ewing would have never have been up.
oh, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
That was like a scream for fucking help, which has actually like paid
Work.
off.
Yeah,
One of the only moves that has worked, but then you have these fucking bums coming back from the IL, and it's like, I don't want to take away playing time from the young guys. Like, dude, Carson Benj is looking amazing.
yeah, on pace for over 20 home runs.
This
Yeah,
this kid this kid puts on some fucking muscle next year, gets a little bigger.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but anything can happen. We saw Vientos hit 30 home runs.
27. He's a bum.
Close enough. We saw
He
him get close to 100 RBIs. Does he even have 20 RBIs right now?
Yes, he does, but he sucks. I hate Mark Vientos.
He looks fucking fat too. He looks out of shape.
He looks like he doesn't give a shit about anything.
Yeah, he really looks like he's just like he's checked out.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't even think it's just with the Mets. I think that he just has an ego issue, and I don't know what the ego is because he blows.
They should just send him to like a team that needs a bat, a DH, just for like a top,
Well,
like a
well,
third number 30 prospect.
well, Maddie, you already know that, we put out some mock trades for Freddie Peralta, and we'll touch upon those momentarily. But I have a trade that involves Clay Holmes that might pique your interest. So we'll get there. Um, the last two things on Steve Cohen. One, he admitted that there was a rift between Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor last year, but it was squashed, but did not give details.
I think everybody knew that at this point.
Yeah, I just want to know, all right, how was it squashed? Did Mendoza pull them in the office? Because then that says something about Mendoza, right? Like
Yeah.
in a good way. So that was interesting. And then last thing, you brought it up before, but he did say while it's going to be a wait and see type of thing, David Stearns is going to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You're
I had that assumption before that press conference, because, dude, what did we go through, like four GMs and over that time period,
yeah.
and their search was terrible. I remember they were freaking in. They were deep into interviews with that like attorney who worked for the Pirates.
Yeah.
Like, dude, they had no idea where to turn. So, honestly, give the schmuck another 2 years. See what he can do with these next few drafts and international free agents. I mean, I
But
don't
again,
even.
I agree, but just bring in a GM, have somebody else to bounce ideas off of, It's
Go
just
like
enough.
go pluck somebody. The Dodgers have like 19 assistant GMs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do like the Tampa Bay Rays. Like, dude, freaking
No, dude, I see that you say Dodgers, I shake my head yes. You say Rays, I say no. And it's not saying one team's better than the other because obviously the Dodgers are superior. But I think that this would be a perfect chance to pluck someone from the Dodgers or pluck someone from the Yankees or pluck somebody from the Phillies, somebody with a big market mindset so that David Stearns can take his little egotistical, analytical, Ivy League, stupid brain and all these dumb processes that are running around and bounce it off of somebody that actually knows how to dish out large contracts and so that they can have an understanding and they can bounce off each other. But listen, I agree. I don't know how you can sell players on, hey, we don't know who's going to be here next year, right? So there needs to be some continuity, right? And there were so many different guys from Jared Porter to Sandy Alderson to Brody Van Wagenen to, Billy Epler to
Jared Porter.
Jared Porter to who's that guy that tweets now? What's his name?
He
I
was our
think
GM.
he was our GM. I don't know if he got I think he was the DUI guy or
Oh, Zach Scott.
Zach Scott. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
seen him in a while. I think he blocked us.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we haven't seen his post.
Yeah. I think after yesterday, a lot of people blocked his friend. It's okay. It's okay. All right. So, I mean, listen, again, the Mets at 36 and 51. We're not really going to talk about the ins and outs of the club at this point in time. We know where we're at. We're going to start this part one of trade proposals, certain players to look at, organizations to look at that might be fits for some of our players. We're going to start with two obvious ones here. Okay. The first one is Freddie Peralta. And we brought this up before. Obviously, Freddie not having the type of season that we all expected. He has shown, capabilities, right? He has had several good starts, but his ERA is 481 through 18 starts. His whip is at 142, only 92 strikeouts in 95 and a third of an inning. Had a great start against the Cubs, 5 2/3 of shutout ball on the 25th of June, then shit the bed against the Blue Jays, allowing 5 runs. And before that, against the Phillies, allowed 10 earned runs. He even admitted that this is the worst that he's ever felt. So take that as you will. But, there are a couple different things, right? Velo's down, his arm slot's down. He's getting hit harder. He's not, in the beginning half of the season, even though he was struggling a little bit, he was holding runners and leaving them on base when he got into a pickle. Now he's allowing them to score. So there are a lot of different things that go into that when it comes to Freddie Peralta. Listen, given the starting pitching market, if the Twins decide to trade a guy like Joe Ryan, he's under team control. That's someone that's going to yield a ton of return. Tariq Skubal is somebody that, a team will have to take on $15-16 million of whatever's remaining, right? Because he had that historic arbitration hearing, 32 mil. And the Tigers have started playing better. So do the Tigers trade him? I don't know. Yeah. Right? So that does leave Freddie Peralta, right? And while he's not having the greatest of seasons, the guy's a dog still. And teams do look at the whole track record, not just what they're seeing this season. He is set to become a free agent after the year. I think that there's a few things to go to look at, right? A lot of people are saying if the Mets don't trade him, they'll extend a qualifying offer. Now, I think that is something that is interesting because the qualifying offer seems to be one thing that both the owners and the players agree upon when it comes to the new CBA to do away with the qualifying offer. So I think that is kind of like a conversation that is misleading because the qualifying offer may not even be something that is offered. So, and they were saying, if the Mets can't get back anything better than they would, let's say, to get like a 5th round compensation pick for Peralta, I think that you just got to trade him no matter what. Yeah. Right. Several teams to look at. And I still think that you can get like one top 100 prospect for him, like a 1-for-1, or you can get 2 or 3 of a team's top 10 or 15, prospects, because that's just how the pitching market is mid-season. Yeah. We did list out a couple teams to look at: Tampa Bay Rays, the Chicago Cubs, who are still in need of pitching help, the San Diego Padres, who are struggling, but they're still in the race, and A.J. Preller will trade everyone and anyone at any point in time. The St. Louis Cardinals and Chicago White Sox, 2 teams that are surprisingly in, and I think that they're going to wait until the last minute to buy because they never expected to be in this position. Yeah. The Houston Astros, who have started playing better, and in weak AL West, and then also, obviously, the Dodgers. Okay. Which team do you like there? Because there are a lot of teams there that have some good farm systems.
I mean, of course, you'd want a piece of the Dodgers, who have 8 top 100 prospects.
Ridiculous.
Literally so ridiculous. I think the Rays will call for our relievers, personally.
Yeah.
I really like that Caden Bodon kid after.
Dude, you see his numbers this year?
Ridiculous.
He's hitting like 350.
Yeah, he might be untouchable.
he definitely might be. But the other thing too is that they have a catcher, Nathan Fremwelling, or I think I'm botching his last name, but like they have 2 catchers, right, that are AA and single A respectively. So I think that might be a position where they may trade from. Just a couple of like example mock trades here. Rays, Peralta to Tampa for their number 4 overall prospect, right-hander Brody Hopkins. He's more major league ready. He was a top 100 before the latest update. The kid throws heat. And then infielder Jadhir Arenamo, who's the Rays' 15th overall prospect. The reason why I like him, he's definitely like a utility glove. He can play all over the diamond, and he's on the Rays 40-man. They have to protect him. So that's somebody that I think that could definitely be used for the Mets, and knowing that he's closer, he's only 22. And then when it comes to a guy like Caden Bodine, there was another mock trade. Caden Bodine, as well as right-hander Ty Johnson, who's 24, a little bit older, could probably make an impact sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the Dodgers, you brought up the Dodgers. Yes, listen, if they need starting pitching and they come calling, you know that they have a system. You know that they're not afraid to trade from. I like this Dodger trade that we put together for a couple of reasons. One, the players are more ready than not. And B, it helps multiple departments that we're in need of.
Yeah.
First, be Peralta to the Dodgers for River Ryan, who he's 27, but we saw what he could do. I believe it was 2024, had Tommy John surgery. But he's been in AAA this season. Dodgers obviously have not called him back up, but he's their sixth overall prospect. He is an MLB pipeline top 100. He's their sixth overall. He's 27 years old. Then Zach Root, who's a left-hander. He's 22 years old. He was the Dodgers' first round draft pick. I wouldn't even call it first round draft pick last year because he was the 40th overall, hard throwing left-hander. And then someone else that I think would be interesting is outfielder slash first baseman, more so first baseman Ryan Ward, who's their 19th overall prospect, but he's 28 years old. And Ryan Ward, I believe it was last season, he came up and had a walk-off in one of his first few games.
Mm-hmm.
Loads of power, and they obviously don't have room for him. So I think that if you could amplify the upper part of your system and bring in a guy like River Ryan and Ryan Ward, two guys that could become Mets by the end of the season and have them in 2027,
Mm-hmm.
and then amplify your foundation with a guy like Zach Root, I think would go a long way.
Yeah, yeah.
One other trade proposal that I like, Chicago Cubs. Now, I'm not sure the Cubs would do this, but again, they have him currently kind of in a platoon situation. He is a top 100 prospect. Pedro Ramirez, who is a second baseman, third baseman. We saw him against the Mets. He's 22 years old. He's their second overall prospect. But with Bregman and Nico Horner and, them going about things when it comes to DH, multiple guys DHing, I think that they might allow him to be expendable if the opportunity arises.
Yeah.
He's someone that I would do a 1-for-1 for. You want to trade Pedro Ramirez to us for, and listen, we could plug him in immediately, right? And let him grow. That's someone that I like. And then also you could do it with the Padres, but they really have no one that's close, and no real top 100 prospects outside of their catcher, Ethan Salas. I put together a trade proposal, Peralta to the Padres for Cash Mayfield, their fourth. Left-hander, Ty Harvey, catcher, their sixth, and then Jace Bowen, who's currently in the majors, an outfielder, he's 25. To me, I really like the Rays, Dodgers, and Cubs as the three teams to kind of keep an eye on when it comes to Freddie Peralta, who definitely needs to be dealt. Bottom line,
100%.
And hopefully 100%. He can have. I think he's got probably like another 5 starts or so until the trade deadline. We need to pray. That he performs.
That he turns it around. He really needs to.
Turns it around. Underlying metrics look good because we need to get something comparable to what we dealt. And then there's Clay Holmes, right? Obviously, he hasn't pitched since May. Has only made 9 starts this season. Coming back from a broken, what is it? Fibula, whatever it is. Yeah, something in the leg, right? Had a phenomenal season, right? And he's somebody that he's owed $12, $13 million next year, but it's a player option. He's going to opt out. I think that you got to look at the same teams when it comes to him. I haven't put together the whole mock trade, but what I will say is I know I brought up the Shane Bieber trade last year. Bieber was coming back from Tommy John. The Guardians traded Bieber to the Blue Jays for Stephen Call, a right-handed pitcher, who was their 11th overall prospect, and now he's the Guardians, I believe, 6th or 5th overall prospect. I think that's something that the Mets need to aim for.
Yeah,
they need to look at that, and something that I wanted to bring up to you before, And this is where Vientos comes into play. Okay. I think you got to look at a 1-for-1. And if it's not a 1-for-1, I think you got to look at like kind of like a couple years ago when the Mets traded David Robertson and got Ronald Hernandez, our good buddy, and Marco Vargas, like towards the back end of 30s.
Yeah.
Two of them. But I put together like Clay Holmes to the Rays for their 9th overall prospect, Michael Forret.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that they could do. But this is an interesting trade. And hear me out on this. Okay. Clay Holmes and Mark Vientos to the St. Louis Cardinals for Blaze Jordan, who is currently their third baseman, but he has not like been something that's completely off limits. He's a first baseman and a third baseman, but a better defender. Someone that the Mets could plug in immediately. He's only hitting .214 this year, 17 games, 1 home run. And he's 23 years old. Blaze Jordan and their 23rd overall prospect, Cade Crossland, a left-hander who's 22 in single A, but has struck out 89 batters in 61 and a third of an inning.
Yeah, I'd do that.
Right? So the Cardinals get a starter, and Cade Crossland's probably not going to make his major league debut till 28, 29. You get Blaze Jordan. Vientos has showed more offensively this year than Blaze Jordan has, so it looks good on their end. And the Mets get somebody a little bit younger and kind of like David Peterson, fresh of breath air, change of scenery. Yep. Get rid of them. Get rid of them.
100%.
You know, and then the last two players that I think are just interesting right now, and I think next week we'll touch upon the bullpen more because obviously we have a ton of bullpen pieces that we could trade. We'll touch upon that next week. But the two other players that I wanted to mention are Bo Bichette and Luis Robert. Don't necessarily have trade proposals on them. I think when it comes to Bichette, a couple teams to look at: Yankees, Blue Jays, Guardians, Marlins, Diamondbacks. Obviously, some team would have to acknowledge that there's a chance that he opts in next year, and they're going to be on the hook for that cash. Yeah. If there is a salary floor, and a team like the Marlins know that, they could literally hit that floor by bringing on $42 million in Bichette. It's not the smartest investment, but you know the Marlins are playing well, and Bichette's hitting better. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's something to consider.
Yeah.
What would you expect though in a trade package?
I mean, if we're going to get something good back, we're probably eating a shit ton of money. But if they're just trying to dump him to dump the salary, it's not going to be much. It'll probably be one top 10 prospect and then someone around 28, something like that.
I'd look at the Yankees. I'd look at the Yankees, right? Like they're struggling from the third base side. Right, mm-hmm. Ryan McMahon has had an awful season. They've been going through rotations over at the hot corner. I think that that's one team that obviously can take on the money, and he knows the AL East. And then a guy like Luis Robert, a team can decline his player option at $20 million for 2027. Mm-hmm. So you could kind of take him on as a rental. Again, he's another guy like Peralta. When Robert comes back, if he can hit up until the trade deadline, some team will take a flyer on him. A few teams that I put out: the Astros, the Phillies, and the Guardians. Now, listen, I'm being honest. I think the Mets need to be in a sell mode, but acknowledge that 27, 28, we can still win considering the pieces that we have.
Yeah.
So, but I don't care about trading a guy like Luis Robert to the Phillies. I don't.
No.
Okay. You get whatever you can back. And we know that the Phillies have been interested in Robert in the past.
So that's 22nd prospect and 28th, like something like that.
Yeah. Just do away with it. Let him go to Philadelphia. They'll probably choke in the playoffs anyway, and then they'll cut him. He'll be a free agent again, right? So, just a few things to consider. Next week we'll do a deeper dive into the bullpen because I think the bullpen is definitely very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, again, just looking ahead, I know I said that we're not really diving into the big league club, but the Mets begin a 4-game July 4th weekend series tonight in Atlanta. Should be loads of fun. It'll be Christian Scott, one of the bright spots of 2026. He'll be opposed by Grant Holmes. Tomorrow, it'll be Sean Manaea, who looked much better in his last outing against the Blue Jays. He'll be opposed by Chris Sale. I could see a no-hitter there. On Sunday, it'll be Nolan McLean, who looked excellent in his outing the other night. Hopefully he's back. He'll be opposed by Martin Perez. And then it'll be in the finale on Monday. It'll be Freddie Peralta taking on Reynaldo Lopez. Praying for Freddie.
Yeah, me too. He needs like 7 strong.
Yeah. The Braves are a team that really needs starting pitching as well. Would you trade Peralta to the Braves?
If it's the best offer,
Yeah.
guess you have to.
Yeah. I really don't care.
Yeah.
I agree. I didn't list them because obviously they're the Braves, but like if we're talking about sending Robert to the Phillies, then like screw it.
Yeah. Like if they're gonna dangle like J.R. Ritchie in front of us, then I would do it.
Yeah. And they have some kids that are like well out from the major leagues. But again, if David Stearns is going about it like in Will Salmon's piece about we're going for the best possible package, just do it. Pull trig. Let's reset. And then the Mets welcome in the Royals. And then they have one more series, and then there's the All-Star game. And I know the starters are going to be announced, I think, next weekend, but I believe that Juan Soto is going to be one of the starting outfielders. That's a nice highlight. He deserves it. Highest OPS in the National League. But yeah, Matty, you got anything else for us, brother?
No, man. Just hopefully everybody has a nice 4th of July, and hopefully the Mets can win a couple games and pray for Freddie, and then we trade them all away.
Love the positivity and the negativity just coupled into one. That's a Met fan in a nutshell right there. Exactly. Yes, sir. Echoing what Matty said. Happy 4th of July, everybody. America's 250th. Stay safe. Because there's a lot of shenanigans that goes on.
Don't blow any of your hands off.
Yeah. Don't do that. We all want all 10 fingers on come Sunday. And with that, episode 13 is in the books. Remember to give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, and X. We are at Cup of Mets. Subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, download the SeatGeek app, punch and code Cup of Mets at first purchase to get $20 off. And I'll echo what I said last week. Do it for a different sporting event. Don't do it at Citi Field.
The reason why I'm going to freaking Citi Field again this summer is because I got the tickets for free.
Yeah, but you know what you need to do, Matty? Like, listen, I know that you're a foodie, brother. But what you need to do is you need to go to Chipotle or some shit before the game, eat, and just go watch the game, get some footage, watch the game for what it is, and don't spend a dime on them. And you should document that. Don't spend a dime at Citi Field.
Yeah, I mean, my little cousin would be probably pissed off who's going to watch this episode tomorrow. So he's going to want something to eat. I don't think Steve Cohen is getting too pissed off about losing my $60.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Especially when his accountant's telling him he's losing $250 million.
A year, probably.
A year, yeah. All right, with that, everybody, again, have a happy and safe 4th, and we'll see you next week. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.